This is the Experienced Optimist. And I was just thinking about how a lot of us men, we like to save everybody and not save ourselves. And I started doing some research on the savior complex, and I realized that there's a lot of people out here that we as men really shouldn't be saving. Like we shouldn't be saving a lot of these a lot of these dudes, man, who are weasels. I call them weasels. The RDAs, the racist douchebags and assholes, the ones that are out here making life difficult for many other men. And a lot of times we see these men as our brothers, so we want to reach out and we want to save them. I'm here to tell you, like, after so much experience, man, is that those dudes, you shouldn't go out and save those dudes, man. They don't need to be saved, and they don't. Be quite frank, they don't deserve to be saved. And the reason why I say that is because how many times have you seen a guy and he wasn't really a stand-up guy, he wasn't really a good person, but you went out of your way to still try to save this guy, and then he just turned around and stabbed you in the back. And that's the thing I've realized is that you shouldn't waste your time on these type of people. And the reason why you may waste your time trying to save RDAs and these Weasley type guys out here is because you have the savior complex. And having a savior complex really isn't something that's very good. I actually found an article, I'm going to bring it up right now. It talks about this. It talks about the savior complex and what it derives from. And I'm going to read a little bit of it right now. It says, have you ever felt like you were responsible for the success and well being of another grown adult? Like this other person really needed your help, and if it weren't for you, they would be in a lot of trouble, unable to take care of themselves. Have you ever felt you had to save them? And if none of your efforts worked and the person continued down the path of self destruction, have you felt in denial about it? So the article goes on and it talks about what's happening is that you're developing a codependency, and it's fostering a type of dysfunctional relationship that actually hurts you. So it says the overarching principle of codependence is the keen, undiverted focus on another person. A codependent person constantly analyzes others, blaming them for his own problems, all the while trying to solve theirs. Generally, and this is what I know it's about my childhood, and when I talk to other guys, it's in their childhood as well. It states generally a tendency for codependence develops in childhood. As a child, you go through a period of dependence when you can't take care of yourself and rely entirely on your parents to fulfill your needs. If you grew up in a healthy family where you felt loved and cared for unconditionally and could freely express your feelings, speak your mind, and be heard, this dependence is secure. As you grow up, you can separate from your parents and become an autonomous, independent individual. However, and how many of you guys go through this now growing up as a man? However, in an unhealthy family situation, things take a things take a different direction. Importantly, a dysfunctional family doesn't necessarily need to involve alcoholism or any other addiction. Parental narcissism and neglect can do just as much damage. Some examples of a toxic family dynamic that predisposes one to become codependent include families with judgmental and criticizing parents, helicopter parents, or situations where the child is forced to serve as a buffer between the fighting parents. So, especially for black guys, I mean, how many how many of you guys have grown up in a situation where you have these parents who are mean. They tell you they're always trying to manipulate you emotionally, and um, you really can't find your footing as far as you trying to express yourself. It goes on to say, The common trend in all of these circumstances is that the child is manipulated with the feelings of guilt, shame, and fear into becoming a tool of fulfilling his parents' needs and wishes. His own feelings are invalidated. He grows up feeling rejected, shut down, and learns to cope with his anxieties on his own. If you grow up in a dysfunctional family, you grew up thinking that you can, excuse me, if you grew up in a dysfunctional family, you grew up thinking that you can and must make a difference. You believe that you can do it all if you put in enough effort. You grow up feeling omnipotent. You fail to recognize your own limitations because this is the only way you can feel needed and whole. How many of you guys have gone through that situation? I know I've gone through that situation. And this is the problem with so many men today, man. They're growing up in these households which in which your manhood and who you are is stifled. So you develop these codependent relationships where you're trying to make women happy and you're trying to stand out in society, and you face a lot of backlash because of it. So the article goes on to further talk about how weakness and vulnerability attract you. You are obsessed with helping others and will make personal sacrifices to resolve another's problem. Even, and this happens a lot, even if no one asked or if you have a choice not to. So you're always butting into other people's problems and you're always seeing a guy. And that's what's happened to me a lot. I see a lot of guys do this. They'll see a toxic person, generally like the weasel guy I'm talking about, the RDAs, the racist douchebags and assholes, and you'll see that guy making a mistake, and you'll say, "Hey, man, let me go ahead and offer some advice to that person. Let me go and give this guy a hand." And then when you go ahead and do it, the dude stabs you in the back. See, the thing is, you were never supposed to help that guy in the first place. And the article goes on to say the reason why you do that is because you will never put yourself first because you are afraid of rejection and can't handle being alone. So, how many guys do you know cannot handle being alone? I know a lot of them. And I know that it leads to them getting in these relationships with these women that last 10, 20 years and then getting screwed over in family court, or guys will just join some sort of club with a lot of shady people or a gang, for example, and then they get used and abused. So, and this is important right here. The article goes on to state, you are not a person. You are a function. You serve the needs of others in your family, be it your spouse, your children, or your parents. In your life, the others are a source of meaning because you exist, and this is very important, because you exist to serve them, even though it makes you miserable. Your life is defined by the mantra, for me to feel good, my loved ones must feel good. You find it hard to pursue a relationship that promises a stable, secure attachment with a partner that is problem free. On the opposite, you are attracted to people with issues because you will invest massive time and resources to save them from themselves. For instance, and this is talking about women, but this relates to men as well. For instance, codependent women will often chase emotionally and physically unavailable men or stay for years in toxic or abusive relationships. How many of us guys know other guys like this? So when they're breaking this down, they're trying to psychoanalyze where the savior complex comes from. It says it's almost as if deep inside you still feel like a child that's trying to reach her unavailable parents. She can't accept that she can't change the way they are. She believes with her omnipotence, she can change them. She also believes she can change the new boyfriend of hers that neglects her, is verbally abusive, and has been unemployed for months. But how many of you guys do this with women? You come across a woman, she may be, this is what you're thinking in your mind. You come across the stripper, right? You come across a stripper and she may be nice. She have a nice attitude. So you think that, well, with just a little bit of your information, your knowledge, you can put her on the path to righteousness. But the reality is, she doesn't want to be on the path to righteousness. She is like the man I was talking about earlier. She's a weasel, and she's not going to change who she is. So you coming in here trying to change this person, it's not going to work. And that happens with these other shady men as well, the RDAs, the racist douchebags and assholes. You see a guy making a mistake and you come in and you're like, hey man, hey, you should do it this way, and they bite your head off. Hey, you just gotta let them do what they gotta do and learn on their own. Now, there's in this article, let me scroll down here, it talks about how you can change. And this is important, especially for MGTOW men. It says, number one, focus on yourself. I really don't have to say much more about that. Um, it's very simple. It says, stop looking at others and start looking inward. Um, you are the one with the problem. Oh, this is good. It says you are the one with the problem. I don't mean it in any punitive or judgmental way. However, unless you focus on yourself and stop blaming others, you will never be able to change anything. And it goes on to state that you are the only person that you can control. Consumed by the feeling of false omnipotence, you take upon yourself the responsibility for the feelings of others. You are afraid to hurt them and even more afraid to lose them. So that's the thing, man. When you focus on yourself, man, you got to let these Weasley people go, man. You got to let these people who mean you no good, get them out of your life, man. Focus on yourself and just do what you got to do for you. Now, this is hard. Even me reading this, because I've been like this so long. I mean, it hits me hard because I still struggle with this every day. Now, the number two, in order to get out of this codependent savior complex, it says, come clean about your motives. The fine line between codependency and care lies in your motivations. When you're trying to help or save someone, who are you doing it for? The Savior is doing it for himself. Care is about the other person and always leaves them with the right to choose whether or not they want to accept it. You can offer help, but if the other refuses it, you can embrace it and don't insist. What I've learned now, what I'm learning now is that, man, with some of these people, and they're Weasley and they're the RDAs, don't even offer help, man. Just let them do their thing, man. When you're focusing on yourself and you're doing your own thing, man, you're focused on your hobbies. You really don't even have time for them, and it avoids so many problems. So many problems I've gotten into, I had issues with, and I've seen other guys have issues with, was just because we were too nosy and we were trying to get into other people's business. It's another one. It says, accept your limitations. Allow yourself to be helpless. And this is hard, man. This is hard because when you're young, man, and you're trying to um, save your parents or you're trying to get their attention, um, you don't allow yourself to to be helpless in what they're talking about. And it goes on to say, an important feeling that keeps the Savior in his rescue mindset is that of helplessness. It has something to do with trying to protect that misguided sense of omnipotence stemming from childhood. You think, if I try just a little bit harder, I can fix this. In reality, you are trying to fix something that happened a long time ago when you were a kid that you weren't able to fix. Accept your limitations and allow yourself to be helpless. You are not God. You can't change things that are outside of your control. And for better or for worse, most everything out there is outside of your control, whether you want it or not. The truth is, hyper responsibility is the other side of irresponsibility. In the case of the latter, nobody takes responsibility. In the case of the former, you take responsibility for everything, even when it doesn't belong to you, and try to change something that lies outside of your zone of influence, which often ends up being the life of another person. This is how your psyche attempts to push out the feelings of helplessness. But I'm telling you to embrace it. Watch yourself every time you invade someone else's domain of responsibility. Accept that your loved one can fail, and accept those shady weasels. Accept that they can fail too as well. And you don't have to get involved. Be helpless. And there's another article that talks about this as well. And it talks about, this is really important information. I think everyone should know. And it states that people with the savior complex often believe they are somehow better than others because they help people all the time. And this is important right here, leading to feelings of being morally superior. In addition, experts note that the savior complex can induce feelings of, and this is what we were talking about before, feelings of omnipotence, making people who experience it prone to believing no one else can save others the way they can. Because people with the savior complex tend to seek people who desperately need help and to assist them, often sacrificing their own needs. They are often, and this is important, identified as nice guys. But the truth is, emotionally healthy people will never have a compelling need to seek that type of validation. That itself should be an alerting sign. While helping people out generally isn't harmful, an individual with the savior complex can actually do more harm than they help by trying to fix something that they don't have skills to fix. And this is the most important part that I had to learn and I'm still learning, and that a lot of men are still learning. Rather than entrusting the job to someone who does. If your partner has a drug problem or alcohol problem, and you refuse to leave because they need you, you're just making the situation worse, which I talked about a little bit earlier. And this is the thing, man. When you start feeling morally superior because you think you're the only person who can solve these problems, then you're taking away the agency of the other person. The other person can the other person can fix the problem themselves. They may not be able to fix it today, but they may fix it like 5 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever the time frame it is. The reality is that it's not your problem. And that's the thing. When you have these shady dudes that you're around and you're really trying to help these shady guys, don't help the don't help the weasels, man. Let them falter. To be honest, like I said before, some dudes deserve it, to be honest, because they're never gonna learn otherwise. And when you're focusing on yourself, man, you're focusing on your hobbies, you're focusing on your own life. And those people really can't do you any harm, man, because you frankly don't care if they fail or falter, because ultimately they have to learn for themselves. But anyway, I just wanted to make this video because this is something that's been on my mind. And uh, I thank the guys who've commented on my last video. And let me see, Mr. Sando, I believe it is. Mr. Sandro, yeah. I am going to make a video about traveling and leaving the Matrix America and creating a better life outside of America. I'm gonna do that. And Key himself, man, dude, I really appreciate you sharing what Doc Go7. Um, I went and checked out that video. It's a really good video, and I'm gonna check out this dude's channel, man. It looks like he has some great content. But anyways, that's it for me. If you like this video, like, subscribe, support the MGTOW channels, and I'll talk to you later.